Living with Camille and Margot was just the breath of fresh air that I needed. Finally, here were two girls who had no ulterior motives towards me. They were just there. Granted, Dad hired them to protect me, but they were both just so chill about everything that it felt so nice to not be looking behind my shoulder all the time like I used to. Hey there, it's Milton. And last time we saw each other, I found out that my new roommate was my cousin and that she has a crush on me. Before anything else, hit subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and click the notification bell icon to show your support for me. Camille was Margot's superior, and they both came along to make sure I had enough protection. You might think, what's a couple of girls gonna do? Well, these girls are trained in some of the world's most dangerous martial arts. And they proved that when one day the twins, Chad and Brad, somehow came to get back at me, because apparently they didn't learn their lesson the first time. I was coming back to my dorm after a long, exhausting campaign tour during the weekend when the twins appeared at the top of the staircase at my building. "You're not getting away with what you did to Giselle! Where are your bodyguards now, nerd?" Camille and Margot rushed both of them, and in a second, they were doubled over and clutching where the girls hit them. Camille planted her heels on Chad's back as she smiled calmly. "They're right here. Come near Milton again, and you'll regret it." The two scurried out of there like a lion was chasing them, and I never heard from them again. Camille, Margot, and I went everywhere together. They were just so much fun being around. And I have to say, it didn't take long for me to return Camille's feelings. Especially when I found out that Camille was adopted. Then I didn't feel so bad about having a crush on her. It would have looked bad on my bid for mayor if anyone found out I was falling in love with my cousin. Speaking of my campaign, ever since that whole scandal and the fuss that the twins and Carl made at the rally, my name was all over the news. Videos of me standing up for the kid that got hit by a rotten tomato circulated everywhere. And people were writing all sorts of stuff about me. "The hero our city needs," said one of them. "A mayor who protects our kids," said another. The polls came back and I was in the lead against two other candidates. I had 62% of the votes. Because of that, and mostly because I was so obsessed with my new roommates, I began slipping. I spent more and more time at our dorm, just hanging out with Camille and Margot. I took them to lavish vacations and treated them to luxurious dinners. I even bought Camille a necklace. She turned beet red when I gave it to her, and Margot That night, she texted me that she was sorry. She was just embarrassed as she'd never received such a nice gift and a kind gesture before, and that she loves the necklace. I was spending so much time with them that my poll numbers began to decline. The latest poll showed me at 49%. And although I was still the frontrunner, that caused my dad to panic. "Son, I heard your poll numbers dropped. What's going on? Is there a new scandal? Is someone trying to sabotage you? We can't lose, son. And you told me you wanted to win this without my influence. But if you're in trouble, you have to tell me." I guess I was sabotaging myself this time. I'd grown complacent, and now I'm losing my lead. I promised myself I would work harder. I promised to balance my time, so I worked. I worked really hard to catch up. I focused on school and campaigning and set aside time for Camille and Margot every other evening. On weekends, I would visit schools and hospitals and animal shelters. And at night, I would work on all the schoolwork I had slacked off on. I did more and more interviews, and the media was abuzz with my name again. They all talked about the kid mayoral candidate. The first ever candidate to still be in school. And that was a novelty for my city. It made everyone talk about me. They were curious about how I was managing it all, and how I'd come to have that much influence at such a young age. Soon, there were features of me in magazines, all telling about my life story. I wasn't just a candidate anymore. I became a celebrity. People would recognize me at the park, at the grocery store, on the streets. And even though I missed the privacy I used to have, it felt good to have achieved what I set out to do. I owed it to myself to win this election, and I owed it to my dad. I did promise him I would do it for us. I wanted to change my city for the good, and I could do it with my dad's power and influence. Just a few months after graduation, the final poll results came in, and I was leading at 72% of the votes. It was looking like a landslide victory, and all my opponents conceded even before Election Day came. I won unopposed. On my inauguration, my whole family was there. Sophia, Camille, and Margot stood beside me. And my dad and stepmom stood behind us. "I'm really proud of you, son." That felt really good to hear it from him. And it felt so good to have a family that supported me. After a life of people trying to tear me down, I finally had people around me who lifted me up. My first couple of months as mayor went smoothly. I passed a few ordinances and changes to our city. They were well received and people were happy. Little by little, I was making a good impact on people's lives. Our employment rate was up, our schools were doing good, and the crime rate went down. That was until a syndicate that ran a number of businesses downtown started causing havoc. Nobody even knew they existed until my new changes started affecting their operations. That was when my dad approached me, and it was the first time I ever heard something I didn't agree with. "We have to get rid of them. They're trespassing on our organization's territory. This city is ours. You must get rid of them immediately." I launched a crackdown and had their leaders jailed. And even though my dad's reasons were selfish, it felt good to me. What was bad about getting rid of criminals? I thought. But then he asked me for another thing. "Son, a big deal is going down between our organization and the Chamber of Commerce. I need you to provide heightened security." It felt bad to use the city's resources and cause inconvenience to the citizens, but I closed down an entire street and ordered cops to escort their convoy. But when my dad asked for my help to pressure some company into selling controlling shares to my dad, I wondered if he wanted me to be mayor just so he could have a politician he could use. I was stressed from work, I was stressed from the toll of the favors my dad wanted, and I hardly ever saw Sophia or Camille anymore. I had no one to talk to. That was when Ginny appeared to me. No, Ginny's not a real person. Or, at least, I don't think she is. If I can describe her at all, she's kind of my subconsciousness? My conscience? My imaginary friend. My guardian angel. Maybe she's a ghost that lives in the mayor's mansion. I can't say for sure, but Ginny's helped me a lot. I just talk to her when I'm really stressed, and she helps me. She helped me come up with good solutions for when my dad would ask shady favors. That way, I didn't have to do anything that was less than legal. Ginny would also warn me of things that were coming my way. I don't know how she did it, but once, when I was stepping into the street and I was on my phone, I didn't realize that the lights had gone green and a truck was speeding through. Ginny's voice reverberated in my head. "Stop!" And half a second later, the truck went past me. I breathed a sigh of relief and thanked Ginny. The best thing Ginny's helped me with so far was inspiration. To relieve myself of the stresses of being the mayor and Dad's right-hand man. I got back into coding, and I found that whenever I was coding, I felt relaxed. I was transported into another world, one far away from the real one. I called it the metaverse. I was so deep into making that virtual world that I hardly noticed the time go by. Ginny fed me ideas and I expressed them in code. And suddenly, I looked up from my screen one day and realized I'd created a billion-dollar world. I rushed to contact my friends in Silicon Valley, and they got me in touch with bidders. I knew I couldn't do it on my own. I had to launch this project with the backings of an international multi-billion-dollar company. And that's how I landed a deal that could sell my code for billions. Suddenly, I was gonna be rich. Like, really rich. And with my own money, not my dad's. I celebrated and I thanked Ginny. Although I thought I'd done all that hush-hush, I received a call from my dad. Nothing really got past him. Could he have bugged me? Were there spies following me wherever I went? My dad was all over me. He kept asking me questions about how my code worked, even though I'm not sure he understood any of it. He said he'd send some expert to look at it, and I was wary, but I had to accept. He was my dad, and maybe he just wanted to look out for me. What was he planning? I realized something was wrong after the expert came and looked at my code. That night, when I booted my PC, everything was just black. I had cold sweats. Something was wrong. I called Dad. I called Sophia, Camille, Margot. No answer. What was happening? I was just about to start hiring people. I was going to start my own company. I had investors lined up. I was going to build my own empire. Ginny appeared to me again. Remember that girl that hangs around here sometimes? When she gets you coffee, she keeps looking at your screen. You told her everything, didn't you? For the first time, I began to doubt Ginny. No. Not Camille. Why would she do that? Why would she steal anything from me? Why would any of them? They're my family. I watched the numbers go up. The race was neck and neck, and it was all I could do not to bite my fingernails. I never thought it would all come to this. I never even dreamed I would run for president. But I had to. I had to put an end to the evil that I felt partly responsible for unleashing into the world. If it wasn't for my help, my father wouldn't have gotten such a tight grip on power and influence. If I hadn't so naively trusted him and gave him favors that allowed him to dig his claws into power, he wouldn't be here. So when I heard he was running for president, I knew I had to stop him. I tried everything else, but nothing worked. And now, all I could do was run against him. I had to win. I had to. I had to stop him in his tracks before he destroyed the entire world.